wondering if you heard the quote. He said that Connor Bedard was perhaps the most NHL ready now rookie that he had ever played with, and he played with Connor McDavid too. So I thought that was pretty crazy.
You're now listening to the Boys in the Booth podcast with your hosts, Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams.
That's a big one.
Yeah!
Hello and welcome to episode 184 of the Boys in the Booth podcast. This time, just myself, Chad Melbourne, joined by Casey Abrams. No Harper Cody this episode. He is at a concert enjoying himself tonight. I don't know who he's seeing, but it was a pretty last minute thing, and he dropped the ball today. So that's a scheduling issue. Nothing new for the Cody man himself. But Casey, how are you doing? So much is going on right now. Hockey's back. That means fantasy hockey's back. We just had Thanksgiving. NHL 24 is out as well. What a crazy time it's been for hockey in general. How you doing?
Well, I haven't played any of the NHL 24 other than the brief stint we did online, because that game's usually hot garbage in the first month it comes out. So I'm not really worried about jumping into that. But yeah, happy Thanksgiving to all our Canadian listeners. We did it first, USA. It was us first. This is the real Thanksgiving. Got to enjoy it with all my family and my immediate family, and had 3 dinners, so I had a hard time getting up the stairs to record this episode, but doing good. Hockey's back. It's Christmas Day right now, and happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be talking hockey now that the season is actually underway. And dude, I'm with you. I'm in an absolute turkey coma right now. Like these last couple days for lunch have just been turkey salad sandwiches and then eating leftovers for dinner. So this is a great time of the year for food, that is. And I had a great weekend having the family up visiting for Thanksgiving, so that was great. But speaking of NHL 24, by the way, before we hop into this episode, weird decisions this year, weird controls, layout. It's very different from anything that we've seen in the past with the whole being able to do the Michigan and other complicated dekes with just one press of a face button. That's pretty interesting. And then just like so many bugs right away, which we noticed playing on the night that it came out. So but yeah, what we want to do for this episode, because of course we could talk about bugs in NHL 24 for a whole episode. Maybe we will. We've done that in the past. But what we want to do for this episode is a little bit of a draft of Calder Trophy candidates going into this 2023-24 season. We'll do a draft. Casey, you'll go first. I'll go second, and then it'll go back to you. And we'll pick the top 6 players that we think are close to or maybe likely to win the Calder. And of course, as we go on in the draft, the picks will become more dark horse candidates as opposed to likely candidates. But these are always fun because this is going to be a good rookie class. There are a few players who have sort of spilled over from previous seasons who have played just a handful of games and are still eligible to be considered rookies. And then, of course, we have the first and second overall pick of last year, or first and third, rather, because Leo Carlsson got hurt and he will eventually play this season. But it's going to be an absolute incredible draft class. So, Casey, without further ado, I'll send it to you. Who do you think has the best odds to win the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year in the NHL in 2023-24?
Yeah, I was glad you said I get to go first, because that means I get to draft Connor Bedard. And I think that's the obvious pick here. I think everyone has him as the obvious pick here, including Vegas, where the odds have him at like minus 170 to win the Calder. So no point in putting the money on him. He's probably has the most hype as a first overall pick since McDavid, and he's being regarded as a generational talent in the same breath as McDavid, and it's his shot and his skill and his IQ that has him there. That quote by PK Subban saying that he's a top 10 skill player in the entire league, I don't think that's offside at all. I'll sit at that table with PK Subban all day long. So I was totally fine with that. I'm going to move right past his junior career because we all know how ridiculous that was. But for me, the big thing here, compared to some of the other guys we're going to talk about in this episode and some of the other rookies, is that he's not just going for the Calder, he's going to try to be the MVP of his team this year. And he's the guy in Chicago. It's quite obvious. He's going to get first line, first power play, overtime, every big situation. Connor Bedard is going to be on the ice. And Chicago's done in their situation, in their position, the best they can to put him in a situation to succeed in his first year, and bringing in some vets to kind of help guide him, and Perry and Foligno, and most importantly, Taylor Hall, who is also a first overall pick and has played with half a dozen other first overall picks so far in his career. So hopefully he's going to have some advice, as well as help him on the ice, kind of in the same way he did with Nico Hischier in Taylor Hall's MVP season. Hischier had 52 points, which is one of the best 18-year-old seasons out there. And really, I think with Bedard, 30 goals and 70 plus points, that's his target. It might be an outrageous target, but that's got to be it. And that's going to be one of the best 18-year-old seasons of all time if he does that. So, yeah, Connor Bedard, 1 goal, 4 assists in 5 preseason games, tore it up in the rookie camp. I think that it's a lock at number 1.
Yeah, that's an absolute no-brainer pick. And there was a lot in there. You mentioned the Taylor Hall quote, or you mentioned Taylor Hall playing with Connor Bedard. I was wondering if you heard the quote. He said that Connor Bedard was perhaps the most NHL ready now rookie that he had ever played with, and he played with Connor McDavid too. So I thought that was pretty crazy.
McDavid, RNH, Hischier, Hughes, Dahlin, Yakupov.
Yeah, so there's definitely some good names in there. And I'm also happy that you mentioned opportunity as well. You mentioned Connor Bedard is going to be playing on the first line, first power play unit, overtime, and in all situations, probably playing upwards of 17 to 20 minutes a night, as an average first line player. I'm glad you mentioned opportunity, because I feel like that's always a big part of it when it comes to these Calder Trophy rankings and predictions. You have to factor in, of course, prior production from the player, which we mentioned his WHL career was incredible. Just last year, 71 goals, 72 assists for 143 points in 57 WHL games. By the way, that's an NHLE of 151. Not saying he's going to get 151 points. That metric is a little bit broken, but it just goes to show that this kid was too good for the WHL almost since the moment he stepped into it. But yeah, so of course, when we're measuring these players, opportunity is a big factor. Physical maturity is another big factor, and prior production, like I mentioned. So those are sort of the 3 things that I'll be measuring these players on.
A big factor for Bedard in this kind of opportunity, as you've mentioned it, is that there's no kind of clear shot 22, 23, 24-year-old rookie out there that is going to come in and steal it from him. So I think that's also helping his situation.
That's right. But another thing that might go against Bedard for winning the Calder is, we've mentioned this before, some of the best players in the league and some of the generational talents that have blessed the NHL over the years have not won the Calder Trophy. So I'm thinking of Sidney Crosby, did not win Rookie of the Year. Connor McDavid did not win Rookie of the Year. Austin Matthews, whether you want to put him in that same category or not, that's up for debate, but he did not win Rookie of the Year. So there's a lot, sort of maybe going against Connor Bedard, and that's just my 2 cents. So
yeah.
But okay, going to number 2 now, and here's where it gets a little bit dicey for me, because I think there are at least 2, but certainly more than that, who could compete for this number 2 spot. But I'm going to draft Adam Fantilli of the Columbus Blue Jackets. There's another name who I think you're going to be happy to pick number 3, but I'm going to go with Adam Fantilli. Playing for the Columbus Blue Jackets, he has the 4th best odds right now on Sports Betting Dime at plus 2,000, which is some great odds right there to win the Calder Trophy this year. He had 30 goals, 35 assists for 65 points in just 36 games for the University of Michigan last year. NHLE of 115. Again, I'm going to bring that up because I think it's a relevant number to compare. I'm not saying that number is how many points he's going to score, but it is a valuable metric, at least when comparing the different leagues that these rookies played in the year prior. third overall in 2023. He's 18 years old, but what sets him apart from other young 18-year-olds coming into the league, for me anyways, is his sheer size and physical maturity. 6'2", 195 pounds, playing on a Columbus Blue Jackets team that, let's face it, doesn't have a ton of weapons up front aside from maybe the big two in Laine and Gaudreau. So he's going to be relied on to produce offense at 5-on-5 and on the power play. He's slotted in right now at the 3C position, which makes me a little bit weary picking him in the number 2 spot to win the Calder. But I just think this kid is so impressive, and I just had to go with him at number 2. What do you think?
Well, I don't want to break your heart here, but I had him in my 4 on the power rankings. So I'm happy to hear you take him at 2. Although, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if he won. I'm a little skeptical to take the 3rd overall pick at 18 years old winning the Calder. But that being said, Fantilli's always been ahead of the timelines. You know what I mean? He's the freshman scoring, the Hobie Baker, the signing his contract right away as a 3 overall, being like considered on the team before camp. Like, he's always ahead of schedule. So, I mean, maybe he'll shock us here and maybe he'll take it. He did kind of outshine Bedard in the rookie camp, as well as maybe even the preseason, with 2 goals and 2 assists in 4 games. And he's looked really good. So I wouldn't be surprised if he won the Calder this year, but I had him at 4 in the end. I'm pretty bullish on Columbus, as I've mentioned previously in our preseason rankings, and I do think that he has a decent amount of weapons to pass to on this team, but I don't know if it's, he doesn't have the number 1 minutes like a Bedard and another guy I want to mention, and he doesn't have the team to pass to like a Luke Hughes or a Matthew Nyes or someone like that. So he's kind of in that middle stage, which is going to make it interesting for him.
Yeah, fair enough. I want to clarify something I mentioned earlier. I said Austin Matthews did not win the Calder. He very much did. Forgive me for forgetting that, Leafs fans. That was back in 2017. Had 69 points that year. Nice.
Yeah, you had me confused enough to not even mention that. I was like, I don't...
Yeah, but the point stands anyway. Some generational players have not won the Calder when maybe they should have. Wayne Gretzky was another one who wasn't classified as a rookie because he came from the WHA. But anyways, I digress. Do you want to move on to the number 3 pick case, or do you want to any final thoughts on Adam Fantilli?
No, that's pretty much it. Now, you have me a little stressed out on who I'm going to take number 2 now, because I just wasn't expecting. I was like, oh, he's going to make it easy and take one of the guys I have here, but you've definitely thrown me off. I think I'm going to go ahead and take Luke Hughes, because if he succeeds this year, I'm going to be that guy who didn't take my player. I'm going to look like an asshole. Like when I mentioned that, Hughes and Dahlin, which one I would take, was a little bit of a toss up for me, Jack Hughes and Dahlin. And now that came to bite me in the ass after last season. And I think I like Luke Hughes' situation, and we got a taste of Hughes last year at the end of the season, where he had a goal and an assist in 2 games. The goal was an overtime game-winning goal where he undressed 2 Washington players and did a wraparound, and it was beautiful. And then they trusted him enough to play 3 games in the postseason last year, where he scored 2 assists in 3 games and he was like playing 21 minutes of ice time against Carolina. So that's nothing to scoff at for sure. And then a reason why I'm taking him a little higher than maybe a lot of people are expecting, and that obviously, I passed up on a guy that I had at number 2 on my draft rankings going into this. But the reason is that when it comes to voting, it seems like defense points count for like 1.1 or 1.2 points in the voters' eyes. And I know before I say this, there's a lot that goes into it, that it could be time on ice or blocks or hits or whatever, so don't freak out when I say this. But we saw it a bit last year with Power getting the 3rd most votes with 35 points, compared to Michelli at 49 points and Johnston at 41 points. And then the year before, Moritz won the trophy, or won the award, with 50 points compared to a Zegras at 61 and a Bunting at 63 and Raymond at 57. So I fully think that with Hughes' skating, shot, creativity, like playmaking, he fully has the power to hit 45 to 50 points with his situation in New Jersey and how many weapons he has to dish the puck to. And the one thing that I think a lot of people are maybe holding him back from the Calder predictions is that he's supposed to be playing on the second power play unit. That's what everyone thinks. But if you're following the New Jersey Devils, you know that the second power play unit at the moment is Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Tyler Toffoli, Palat, and Luke Hughes. So I'm not too worried about his power play situation. The first is Hamilton, Meyer, Heischer, Holtz, and Mercer. So they're kind of splitting up the power play to be two strong power play units, and it's been working. They scored 3 in the last game and 4 opportunities. So Luke Hughes, he's going to be dishing the puck to a lot of weapons on New Jersey. He's going to be getting decent ice time. I expect him to play around 20 minutes a night. So I think that he's definitely in this discussion. Maybe I took him a little high, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't mind the pick, Luke Hughes at number 3. I mean, just looking at his season last year for Michigan, 10 goals, 38 assists, 48 points in just 39 games played as a defenseman. Absolutely tore it up. And then, as you mentioned, in his short stint with the Devils, both in the regular season and the postseason, put up numbers as well. So I think 40 to 50 points might even be conservative for him. Yeah. I could see 50 plus points for Luke Hughes, again, depending on opportunity. Right now on Daily Faceoff, he's slotted in to play the third pair on the left side, but who knows how that goes. And again, with power play time, like you were saying, he could get a great opportunity.
I expect him to be playing with Marino in no time.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things, right? Like maybe in training camp, he starts on the third pair and then you're a week into the season and it's like, okay, like I've been playing this kid 20 minutes a night. Like he can't be on the third pair because I just want to play him so much. So I see that.
Yeah, but again, power play, I expect him to get the first or second nod in overtime for being the guy on the back end. So he's going to get lots of ice time and lots of situations where he can pass to his brother to put up points.
Very true. Going back to the power play, I sincerely hope that Dougie Hamilton is still the main quarterback for my fantasy team, and just selfishly thinking about that. But going back to picking Luke Hughes at the number 3 spot, he is number 2 in terms of Vegas betting favorites on Sports Betting Diamond at a plus 700. So it wouldn't be crazy to think that he could win the Calder Trophy, and there might actually be some value if you think that he'll move up the lineup a little bit.
Yeah, it depends on actually what book you're looking at. Like I know that DraftKings has him at 3 or 4, and so yeah.
Very true. Depends on what book you're looking at, and you can use the BetStamp app actually to decide what odds are the best and where you're going to spend your money and make your money. What's up, guys? Thanks for making it this far into the podcast. We hope you're enjoying the show so far. I just want to let you know that we're still doing a limited time merch drop over on boysinthebooth.com/shop. We're selling t-shirts, long sleeves, hoodies, crew necks, sweat shorts, slides, you name it. We're selling it at boysinthebooth.com. So head over there and check it out when you can. Every single purchase allows us to improve the quality of our podcasts going forward. Plus, you get to wear some awesome gear too and support the boys. So we'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. This podcast is sponsored by Liquid IV. Whether you're staying active or nursing a hangover, Liquid IV has you covered. Just one stick of Liquid IV in 16 ounces of water hydrates faster and more efficiently than water alone. There's plenty of awesome flavors, but my personal favorite is lemon lime. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code boys_in_the_booth at checkout. That's 20% off anything in the store when you order using the promo code boys_in_the_booth. Experience better hydration today with Liquid IV. This podcast is sponsored by the best ticket app out there, SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals on tickets to your favorite sporting events. Plus, Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first ticket purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code Boys in the Booth in all caps. So click the link down below to download the app and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code Boys in the Booth in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek. Okay, going to the number 4 pick, I'm going to select the player that I thought you were going to take at number 3, and I think you thought I was going to take at number 2, and that's Logan Cooley of the Arizona Coyotes. He's going to be playing in that second line center position, maybe even first line center by the end of the season. He was drafted 3rd overall in 2022, so he's 19. He's a year older than the first 2 players we selected as our Calder favorites, Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli. So he has that going for him. Not as physically developed, just 5'10", 174 pounds, so about 10 to 15 pounds shy of Bedard, depending on where you look for that. But this player tore up the NCAA last year, 22 goals, 38 assists for 60 points in 39 games played for the University of Minnesota. That's an NHLE of 92. Once again, I need to put a disclaimer on that, not saying that I think he'll get 92 points, but it's just a valuable number to rank him relative to other players. I will say this, Logan Cooley, I think, should be the second should have the second highest odds to win the Calder, at least in my opinion. But the reason I picked Fantilli over him is just solely their production last season, where Fantilli, as a player who's a year younger, had better production in the same league and is more physically mature. So I was hoping that we could get into that, discussion between whether we think Cooley or Fantilli will have a better season. The reality is they're both going to be great players. But yeah, I'm taking Logan Cooley in the number 4 spot. Case, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, that is who I had at number 2 originally, but I kind of shifted at the end. I think something that sketched me out is that he's on the Arizona Coyotes, and they kind of have the tendency to drop the ball in situations, and I really hope they don't. I think a lot of the outcome of this season for him is going to come down to where they're playing him, and if they're playing on the second line, and right now I think he's practicing on the second power play unit. It's like, this is a guy that you got to be giving every situation you can and give him some weapons to play with. He looked good in the preseason. 4 goals, 1 assist, 5 games. One of those goals was special. And we're going to get a lot of exciting hockey out of him in the years to come. So, and this is another guy, this guy, just like Bedard, is going to try to be the MVP of his team this season, not just the Calders. So I think that right away, Cooley is, arguably the best player on this team outside of a Clayton Keller. So right away, he's going to be expecting a lot of it out of himself, and he's going to be in the situation where he's going to be giving a lot of opportunities, at least I hope.
Yeah, he's a player who has incredible vision, great hands, can score, has that nose for the net. You just wonder if maybe the size and strength of players at the NHL level will be a problem for a player who I don't want to say is undersized, because he's not. There's so many players who are his stature, 5'10", and his weight around 175, who are successful in the NHL. It just worries me a little bit, and maybe for that reason I could see him taking another year or two before he is at that elite level. However, it wouldn't surprise me if he won the Calder. So
I wouldn't be shocked if he wins the Calder, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he has the path of a Jack Hughes, where the first season wasn't it, the second one maybe not even, and then 100 points or 99 points. Well,
exactly. And I guess what people would say to that in favor of Logan Cooley is that he took a year off, whereas Jack Hughes went straight to the show. Enough. So maybe, that year benefited him. I mean, clearly he dominated the NCAA last year. Not as much as Fantilli, which is why I picked him number 2. But I think Logan Cooley has a legit shot to win the Calder. And now for these next 2 picks, as we round out our draft, number 5 and 6, I feel like these players have an outside chance if we're thinking of the same guys. But it would be very exciting if one of them won this trophy. So who are you taking in the number 5 spot, Casey?
Yeah, for me, it drastically drops off at these next 2 picks. But dark horses for sure. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of torn. I'm going to go with Devin Levi in the end. I'm a little skeptical because goalies are complete voodoo, but Levi's looked good in every stage of his career since the World Juniors, and I think he's in a pretty good situation and a good position to succeed in Buffalo, and hopefully kind of have a similar outcome as Stuart Skinner last year on, a team that just happens to win a lot of games, and maybe not all because of goaltending. So we'll see how the team defense of Buffalo has improved this year. Last year, if this was the same conversation, I would not be feeling very good for Devin Levi, because they got absolutely shelled when it came to scoring opportunities and shots. So hopefully the improvements that the additions they brought in, another year older, everything like that, is going to work out in the favor of better defense. And then therefore, I think, Devin Levi can have a good season. And Stuart Skinner was second in voting last year. So I wouldn't be shocked if Levi got some of those votes because, wins, and he's going to play a considerable amount of games in this tandem this year. So, that they love to vote on goalies, and that's why I'm taking him.
I am shocked, to be honest, that you're taking a goalie. I thought you would be completely against it, just given the fact that they're so unpredictable. And I remember going back a few years, us having the conversation whether we thought Ilya Sorokin could win the Calder Trophy, because we knew that he was going to be sort of an overaged goalie coming in, but still Calder eligible. And he had a great season and didn't receive as many votes as we thought. But then I guess to that point, Stuart Skinner last year finishing second, maybe tides have changed for goaltenders. But listen, Devin Levi, I think that's an okay pick at number 5. He's going to see a lot of shots, and if he wants to win games, he's going to have to stop a lot of those shots, because I don't really trust the team defense of the Buffalo Sabres as much as I trust their team offense, which is, out of this world. So if he's going to win a lot of games, which I think he very well could this season, he's going to have to stop a lot of shots, which, as we know, goals saved above expected is a counting stat. That's a good thing. You see more shots from more dangerous opportunities, your number in that category goes up, and save percentage is also one that is going to be considered by the voters. So yeah, I could see it.
That's kind of where my thought process was with the Buffalo Sabres. Like, Stuart Skinner, he had 29 wins last year playing for Edmonton. So if Devin Levi can have 21 wins for Buffalo this year and gets absolutely hammered with shots, and that results in a save percentage around a 910, 913. I think Skinner was 913. So those stats I think are fully possible in Buffalo, and that's why I took him. I also kind of wanted to go a little wild with this last one. Like I said, I don't really expect either of these last two picks to win it, so I thought it'd be fun to take a goalie.
Yeah, fair enough. And Harper, who's not on this episode, would be happy that you're picking a member of his Buffalo Sabres in Devin Levi. Of course, they've had some pretty good rookies in the past, notably two very good defensemen, Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin. But yeah, I mean, as a goalie in Buffalo, win a lot of games, maybe you get some votes for the Calder Trophy. The one thing I will say to wrap up on this number 5 spot is that he is in a bit of a trio situation. So I don't know how that will impact his games played. I think they want him to be the number 1, or at least one of the two in a tandem. But, there's also Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen sort of knocking at the door, and Eric Comrie as well, who, I don't know, did they place him on waivers? Are they carrying 3 goalies? I'm not too sure at this point. But
I don't know the situation there, but I just highly doubt that they run with 3 in the end. Comrie got shelled last year. 3 years ago, he got shelled as well. And Levi, they want him to be the guy, so they're going to give him every chance early on. It's just up to him to take it.
Yeah, they like him a lot, and I feel like it could be a situation like in Philadelphia where, they had Carter Hart as their young stud goalie coming in, and they really had no one else, so they just played the heck out of him. Maybe that's the case with Levi, who knows? Okay, going to the number 6 spot now and wrapping up this episode and our draft of Calder Trophy candidates. Again, we're in the dark horse territory now, and I'm between 2 players, and there might be an honorable mention or two, but Sticking with your reasoning, picking Luke Hughes, I have to pick Matthew Knies of the Toronto Maple Leafs as the 6th most likely player to win the Calder Trophy this season as Rookie of the Year. Last season, playing for Minnesota in university, 21 goals, 21 assists, 42 points in 40 games, NHL E of 53, if anyone's paying attention or cares. He had 1 assist in 3 games last year in the regular season for the Maple Leafs, but he had 4 points in 7 games in the playoffs. And, as we know, 57th overall pick in 2021. He's 20 years old, so he's a little bit more mature than some of the other rookies coming into this year. He's 2 years removed from his draft class. He's 6'3", 217 pounds, at least listed as that on HockeyDB, and with that website you never know, but he's a physically mature player who's going to get an opportunity to play in the middle 6 on a really good and dynamic offensive team, playing with the likes of, perhaps throughout the season at times, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, William Nylander, and he'll also be getting second power play reps as well, and honestly might be sort of a fixture on that second power play unit as well. So I think he has a decent opportunity to put up some points. Obviously not as much as a player like Connor Bedard, who's going to be the number 1 center and the go-to guy in every situation. Obviously the Maple Leafs just aren't in that same position. He's physically mature and he's produced relatively well at every level he's played at. So I think he has an outside chance to win Rookie of the Year, though, even though I love the player, I probably won't be betting on it.
Yeah. Funny enough, I did have him ranked at number 5, so you took another one from here. But I kind of switched last second because, again, I think it's going to come down to how they choose to use him. And I think if he's in the top 6 all year, then move him up this draft board. He's going to have weapons to pass to on line 1 and 2. It kind of, evens out a little bit with the other guys when you get into the third line with Toronto. So I also wasn't 100% sure if he's getting a ton of power play minutes either. So again, it was situation. I just thought, I'll go with Levi, make it a little more fun. Plus, I wanted it to be that all 3 of our teams have a guy in this draft,
true.
Which is funny. But Knies looked good last year. He looked good in the preseason again. So hopefully they play him with someone who he can really work with and find some chemistry with. And I think he can put up a lot of points. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, well, you know what? Right now, he's slotted into play on the left wing on the third line. And down the middle, story of the Maple Leafs camp this year is going to be another rookie, Fraser Minton, who is a year younger than Matthew Knies. Those two seem to have great chemistry, but it's not necessarily for their scoring connection. It's mostly for their transition play, their forechecking ability, and their defensive ability as well. Both of those guys kill penalties, admittedly not on the top unit or even the second unit, maybe not even the third unit, but they have the ability to kill penalties as well. Both fast, smart, good, decently defensively responsible players with good sticks. So it'll be interesting to see.
Were you talking about Knies and Minton, or
yes.
Capo Caco and Lafreniere? Because that's the situation that I'm worried about. You know what I mean? They're both playing on the third line together. They have good chemistry together. They are defensively sound. I was like,
well, listen, wouldn't it be a lot better to have 2 second rounders playing that position than 2, one first overall player and 1 second overall player? Yeah. So. But that's sort of the situation that they're in, where they can move up. Both of those guys can move up in the lineup. Knies, I would assume, before Minton. But, they're also trusted to play in a bottom 6 role, which is why they're both sticking around on this team. And a guy like Nick Robertson, who, scores goals, but can't really do much else, has been sent to the American League, at least to start. I think he'll be up and he'll have a point per game in the American League. They'll call him up and he'll do well. But yeah, so Matthew Knies is the 6th pick. I have an honorable mention. I don't know if you have any, but I wanted to share one before you snag them up from me. This was a player who I thought could have been drafted in this top 6, and I debated taking him, but that's Luke Evangelista of the Nashville Predators, slotted into play on the third line on the right wing, plus 2,500 odds right now to win the Calder Trophy. Last year in the American League, he had 41 points in 49 games played. That's an NHLE of 58. And in the NHL last year, he played 24 games and had 15 points. This is the oldest player that we've talked about this episode. He's 21, which, by the way, I thought he was even older than that. He was drafted in 2020, 42nd overall. And he's 6 foot, 183 pounds. So he's physically mature as well. So this is a player who is going to get lots of opportunity in Nashville, playing on the power play, and he's gonna be trying to score some goals for this team, because who else?
That's exactly it. And he is someone that I looked at when I was doing a little bit of research for this, and mostly because of his AHL points last year as well as his NHL points.
Yeah.
But he's going to be one of those guys they look to be a trigger man on this team, and that's what they need. But I kind of thought the same thing about a Eeli Tolvanen in the past and a Philip Tomasino in the past, and it didn't work out for those two guys, to the extent of Calder predictions.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of backpedaled last second with that one, but that's definitely a good shout at like kind of a dark horse type situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I bring up the player because, it's Nashville. It's not like they have like set weapons in their top 6. Evangelista if he plays 1 or 2 weeks where he's just putting goals in the net, all of a sudden he's a top 6 player. All of a sudden he's getting 20 or say 18 minutes a night, and he's playing in offensive positions. So you never know, and that's why opportunity is maybe the biggest factor, one of the biggest factors when considering Calder candidates. But I thought that was a good honorable mention. Do you have any other players who you think could be an honorable mention for the Calder?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to mention Leo Carlsson, but for the same thing of situation, we keep mentioning this. That's why I backed off of him. He is hurt right now for one, but he's also going to be, the 3C. He's coming in straight from Europe. He's got to adjust to the North American game, North American ice. So that's a situation there, but he's got the toolkit to win the Calder. That's for sure. You talk about size. Well, this guy is massive and has the scoring touch. We saw it in Sweden last year as an 18-year-old or 17-year-old. So wouldn't be surprised if he got healthy and got hot in Anaheim and, got into this conversation.
Yeah, another couple players I can think of are, one being Shane Wright. He got cut from the Seattle Kraken. He'll start the year in the American League on that special exemption, playing with the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Took me a second to remember that name. He'll be there if maybe he gets some time and really lights it up in the NHL when he gets a call up. That's one player. Brant Clark is another player, defenseman for the LA Kings, also got cut, sent down to the American League. Who knows if he gets an opportunity in the future. Same exact situation for Simon Nemec, got cut from the New Jersey Devils. Maybe he gets a call up halfway through the season and gets a good opportunity and produces. So those are 3 players that I thought of who unfortunately didn't make their teams out of camp, but are touted as highly skilled, highly talented prospects who eventually will make an impact, whether it's this season or next.
Yeah. Also, shout out like dark horse Logan Stankoven, because I love him. He's just become one of my favorite little prospects, just the way he plays the game. So he's going to be playing on a really talented Dallas team, and there's been a lot of young guys who have succeeded there recently. So he could be another one, and he looked really good in the preseason.
Yeah, you love the Stank Oven, have ever since World Juniors, and the love lives on.
He's an engine.
He is. He goes. Okay, well, I think that does it for our Calder Trophy draft. Thanks so much for listening to episode 184 of the podcast. I want to let you know that we're still selling merch at boysinthebooth.com until October 25th. So go over there and check it out because it's only available for a limited time. Once again, thanks so much for listening to episode 184 of the podcast, and we'll talk to you next week.
This has been another episode of Boys in the Booth with Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. Connect with the Boys in the Booth on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Boys in the Booth. Visit boysinthebooth.com for show details. And don't forget, you can become a patron of the podcast for just $1 a month at patreon.com/boysinthebooth.